Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of the Cuphead show. Okay, so this episode is fun in that, Cuphead and Mugman kind of meet Ribby and Croaks in this episode. If you don't know who those guys are, they are the final boss of Area 1 of the original, of the Cuphead game. So, yeah, we meet them in this episode, and it's kind of interesting. So, the episode opens up with Cuphead and Mugman arguing about the fact that they apparently ate ice cream while sleepwalking, and neither of them are willing to admit what they were wrong and that they ate each other's ice cream. And the two of them just kind of go back and forth about that for a bit until Elder Kettle eventually gets sick of it and decides that they're actually that their family and that they're brothers and that they shouldn't be arguing. So to kind of get them to kind of spend time with each other and reconcile, he gives them $5 and some pocket lint and tells them to go on their merry way. And sure enough, tells them that as long as they're together and their family, they can always reconcile. But of course, they start arguing about who gets the $5 and who gets the pocket lint. So the Elder Kettle just kind of kicks him out and makes him go out anyway. And of course, they immediately start arguing about what to spend the $5 on. Cuphead wants to spend it on the ice cream immediately so that they can get the ice cream, whereas Mugman wants to invest it in the future so that they can have more money later. Which Cuphead thinks will take too long because he wants to eat now. And eventually they wind up running into Ribby and Croaks. And Ribby and Croaks actually run their bar, the Fly Trap, which is a giant club built into a 1930s steam ship, and it's kind of a very cool little detail about that. But yeah, they show up. They run into Ribby and Croaks, and Ribby and Croaks merely remark that they seem to be VIP material, and ask them if they would like to enter the club, and proceed to point out their backstory, which is kind of an interesting thing. They kind of don't give they didn't really give any of the Inkwell Isle residents' backstories, but here we get one for Ribby and Croaks, and that they used to be pro boxers, which is why they wear the boxing gloves in game and why they try to box you. But more to the point, their mom told them they were always very upset with the fact that they fought a lot. So they kind of hung up the gloves metaphorically and opened up the Fly Trap to actually kind of become legitimate businessmen, as they put it. As Croaks points out, if anybody tells them different, they'll pound them. And Ribby just kind of restrains him, pointing out that he's just joking. At which point they then remark that they then decide to list all the different things that they actually offer, pointing out that they basically all the standard fare that you would expect from a nightclub, such as such as they would run. And while the two boys just kind of look at them kind of funny, pointing out that kind of like implying that they don't really care all that much. Once they notice that they get free ice cream upon entry, they're all on board and try to board the club immediately. But it's at this point where Ribby actually stops them and tells them that the cover charge is actually $20, and of course they don't have $20, and point out that the most they have is $5, and when Ribby and Croaks see that they first and foremost they take the money, but second they then proceed to give Cuphead and Mugman a swift kick in the rear and send them flying. And of course the two start fighting over who kicked who better. And at which point the mayor of Inkwell Isle, and that's another interesting lore detail that the series kind of just glosses over, but it makes logical sense. The mayor of Inkwell Isle actually shows up. He's with his wife, and they're both ladybugs. But the mayor of Inkwell Isle shows up, and obviously the two frogs immediately become all lovey-dovey in front of them and try to treat them with hospitality and all that. But their urges kind of come out for a brief moment, and Croaks threatens to wallop them if they're told otherwise. But which obviously Ribby restrains them. But they wind up boarding the ship, and then they go in the ship themselves. Meanwhile, Cuphead and Mugman are revealed to have actually gotten on the boat. They actually got scooped up by the rotor wheel that pushed, the old-fashioned steamships with the rotor wheel on them. Yeah, they got scooped up by that and wound up being deposited on the deck of the boat. And they start and immediately they start arguing over the fact that Ribby and Croaks stole their $5, and to make matters worse, their pocket lint then proceeds to sink into the waters. And of course, they're angry about the fact that Ribby and Croaks stole their $5. Then Cuphead smells ice cream, and sure enough, he pokes his head through the window into the main lobby of the boat, and sure enough, discovers that the ice cream display is dead front and center at the other end of the room. And realizing they need to, and realizing they now know where the ice cream is, they decide to sneak in and steal it for themselves. Since obviously they stole their $5, it's only fair that they steal some ice cream in the process. So in case, they then proceed to actually crawl into the vent where they initially and they kind of start arguing for a bit because Cuphead's going too slow. But with Cuphead shushing him, pointing out that obviously if they could hear Mugman from the dining room, and initially they think he's right because they hear Ribby call him out, seemingly call them out. But as it turns out, no, they're doing a stand-up bit where they're just making fun of the audience as well as themselves. And during that bit, they then proceed to proceed to introduce everybody to their mother, and they also proceed to sing a song about their mom. And what we find out is that their dad actually walked out on them, and their mom taught them right from wrong and taught them not to fight, and a whole bunch of other things you would expect from a mom. But that's kind of sad, sort of, that their dad just gonna walked out on the two of them. But as they're singing, Cuphead and Mugman continue bickering in the vents, and eventually the Ribby and Croaks eventually break off their song, and noting that somebody's in the vents, they then proceed to pull out a firefly, grab a firefly that works for them, and quite literally blasts the vent with fire from the end of the firefly. So. Yeah, the Cuphead and Mugman wind up getting their hands hurt and warm, and proceed to run into the freezer where they kind of get frozen stiff for a bit. And of course, Ribby and Croaks then proceed to kind of argue about the fact that they accidentally set fire to Ma. And of course the flaming vent just kind of falls down. It sets the portrait of their mom on fire, and immediately try to put it out while arguing about whose fault it is, which causes the crowd to become shocked, which Ribby and Croaks deny is actually thinking is actually all part of the act. So they immediately cover up and put their mom's picture out. Meanwhile, in the freezer, Cuphead and Mugman are actually mistaken for pieces of meat by Ribby and Croaks' butcher, who is just kind of a large bulldog man. But he grabs them by their straws, not realizing that they're still alive, and hangs them by the straws from his meat hooks, and proceeds to start sharpening his cleaver, and it seems like he's about to kind of cut them into little cutlets of meat, but then that they do a full 180 when his wife actually walks in and starts complaining about how he stood her up again to work, and of course there's this little humorous bit where he's like he's this big hulking dude, she's this little tiny thing, and she's just going back and forth with him, and he's kind of a little bit submissive with her, and also she can't pronounce anniversary correctly, which causes them to start arguing. But it's during this argument where Cuphead and Mugman decide to give him the slip and run out of the kitchen, and he doesn't fully realize where they are. But But once they run out of the kitchen, Cuphead and Mugman eventually realize they're right next to the ice cream display, and are about to dig in until Ribby and Croaks proceed to yell at them, pointing out having finally realized that they're actually in the establishment, and proceed to yell at them, pointing out that they didn't cover the cover charge, but with Mugman shooting back that they actually did cover the cover charge, the guy just took their $5. So, at which point the four of them then proceed to start fighting, which of course has some very humorous moments where there's also a humorous moment where Ribby and Croaks try to crawl up to the mayor and make it look like nothing's wrong before continuing to fight again, but of course, throughout the procedure of fighting, they accidentally start destroying their own establishment, and and of course, and also as a direct result of the four of them fighting, they accidentally start punching holes in the side of the wall. Ribby and Croaks just start damaging the hull of their ship, which causes it to take on water and start sinking. And of course, this causes everybody to start panicking, because not only has the establishment been destroyed, but now the ship itself has started to take on water. With Ribby trying to dissuade everybody from leaving, pointing out that it's all part of the act, but of course it's not. Of course, everything is completely spiraled out of control, and to make matters worse, their picture of Ma got set again, because it got set on fire again, because Croaks picked up another firefly and tried to burn Cuphead and Mugman at one point. But eventually it gets to the point where where Cuphead and Mugman just go after finally find a pitcher of ice cream and are about to dig in. But then Mugman actually decides to confess something, which is that he did consciously eat the ice cream. He wasn't sleepwalking when he did it. He actually ate the ice cream, and points out that he feels like that makes him a bad brother, and that the fact that he didn't come forward sooner he definitely feels like he feels a bit guilty about it. But Cuphead reveals that he actually did the exact same thing, and the two actually wind up reconciling. And Ribby and Croaks, who are about to pound them, see this little display and immediately start sympathizing with the two boys, and immediately reconcile with each other as well. Pointing out that they find it appreciable that Cuphead and Mugman were able to reconcile like that, and also the two brothers also reconcile with each other, and point out that they're sorry they kind of apologize for fighting so much, and pointing out that they don't kind of mean to, it just kind of happens. And of course, once all four brothers reconcile with themselves as well as each other, Ribby and Croaks kind of declare Cuphead and Mugman our honorary family, and that's whatever happened in the past is all water under the bridge, as the ship actually winds up sinking. And of course everybody winds up emerging from the water completely fine. With Ribby and Croaks just kind of being very sad about the fact that their ship has been just completely demolished and destroyed, and they start arguing about whose fault it is, but then completely reconcile when they see the mater floating by, and immediately point out and immediately thank the mayor for coming and hope he had a wonderful time, even though it's clear that he didn't. The bugs don't do well with water. He's just kind of floating on his back with his wife kind of just hugging him. But in any case, it's at this point where Cuphead and Mugman emerge, as well as a bowl of ice cream, and they finally get to dig in and eat some ice cream. So yeah, this episode kind of has a few lore reveals, nothing major, nothing mind breaking nothing earth shattering, but just the fact that we find a little bit more about Ribby and Croaks and who they are and what kind of lives they lead. The small details like that just kind of make me. The small details like that makes me happy. It's nothing big, nothing major. Obviously, this is just a fun little excuse to have Cuphead and Mugman do 1930s cartoon shenanigans, and I'm all for that. But I do kind of like how this episode just kind of sets up the fact that Ribby and Croaks come from a broken family, and used to be professional boxers, but metaphorically hung up the gloves at the request of their mother, who is now passed. And I do kind of like that the show just does kind of give them a backstory. Not a particularly complex backstory, but one that kind of makes you want to sympathize with them and see them as more than just, well, cartoon characters, as people. But yeah, I do kind of like that, and I do kind of like what this episode was. It's just fun little episode, and I do kind of like the setup for it. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well if you want to help support the show. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way of saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Link is down in the description. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, there's actually two ways you can do that. One is by checking out my videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent one, whereas the bottom video is based on what you've already seen. So if you want to try either of those, by all means, again, link is on the end screen. And also be sure to check out my Twitch. I stream every Sunday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to see more of that, by all means, again, link is down in the description and also on the end screen. So be sure to go check those out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!